All right. Well, it's so nice to be here in this space with you all to talk about the Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness and its third cycle of grant making. We have been doing this work with the Community Fund, started in 2017, and have given a little over $500,000 out from the fund over the last few years, and are thrilled to be announcing our third cycle of grant making for the Community Fund. So I'm Caitlin O'Brien, and I'm the Director of Learning and Community Impact at the Scattergood Foundation. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and walk through a PowerPoint presentation here, and just take you all through the session, and then we can also spend some time at the end with questions. I'll do my best to keep my eye on the chat, and any questions that come up in there we can also answer as we go along. So thank you all for joining us today for this launch, and I'm really thrilled to be getting resources out to the communities that you all work with to support emotional health and well-being for immigrant communities in Greater Philadelphia. Just real quick check. Can you all share my screen or see my screen? Thumbs up. Great, great. All right. So today we are going to just kind of go through some of the background and overview of the Community Fund, talk about our third cycle of grant making and what it looks like, talk about selection criteria, how to apply, and then we'll open it up for questions. And for any of you who weren't kind of on when I started recording, just so everybody knows, we are recording and we will be posting this on our website for all of you to revisit, and then also for others to be able to view who weren't able to make it today. So I do see a number of very familiar names, folks who have been involved in the Community Fund in some way, shape, or form since in the past several years. But I want to just do, for anybody who isn't familiar with the Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness, do a quick background on sort of our approach to the work, and talk about our goals and some of the key stakeholders who have been involved in the Community Fund. So really the key thing about the Community Fund is that we are using a participatory approach to grant making. Hold on one second here. Having a little bit of a technical difficulty. So in participatory grant making, really the goal for us is to break down some of the barriers and power structures that exist in that funder nonprofit relationship, and really creating a fund that where the goals and the strategy has been built by community-driven immigrant serving organizations. So here, where you see sort of traditional philanthropy might sort of be in these buckets of informing or consulting, where there's more of a transactional relationship, where sort of grant makers either tell or receive information, and non-grant makers are sort of on the opposite end of that telling or receiving. And really what our goal is here with the Community Fund is to really get to this kind of deciding bucket, where there's communication that really leads to joint decision making, where we're all in this together. We all share goals of improving emotional health and well-being among immigrant and refugee communities, and that immigrant serving community-based organizations have a say in the process at every step of the grant making process. So, be it from developing the grant strategy and request for proposals, throughout the actual granting process, and then once the grant has been given and the programs are being implemented. So what does this look like for the Community Fund in practice? So we really start here with a pooled fund. So we have a number of both public and private funders who have given into a collective fund where we can support a broader ecosystem of organizations that are doing, incredible work, like the organizations that you all are with. And we believe that sort of by pooling our funds and having more of a collective, we can kind of go farther than having individual funders fund individual organizations and have folks sort of all in their own lane. So this is kind of a way of us bringing some of the funding together and getting those dollars out with similar goals. So we have a community advisory group that we've worked with for the past several years of immigrant serving community-based organizations that have been tasked with developing the grant strategy for how to use these dollars. So they have, provided incredible wisdom and thoughtfulness into what this process really looks like, and have been the ones to develop requests for proposals and really think through what it means to support emotional health and well-being in immigrant and refugee communities. They also nominate members of a decision-making group who are the folks who are tasked with actually reviewing applications and making grant decisions. So this year you can see we have two kind of avenues of grants. We have some flexible spending grants and some programmatic grants, all with similar goals of promoting emotional health and well-being. And we'll get into that in just a moment. But here too, we want all of these stakeholders to come together to really build out this community of practice, where organizations have the opportunity to build relationships and collaborate with one another, to develop some collaborative process, and to gain access to some capacity building opportunities. And I think that there's some really exciting things that we're doing this round of grant making that we're actually going to be able to resource this community of practice in a way that we hadn't in the past, that will really kind of bolster the community of practice and make it stronger than it has been before. So our overarching goals, to kind of reiterate, are one, to invest in programs that remove barriers and provide opportunities for all individuals, especially in vulnerable communities, to live with dignity and joy. To build organizational capacity among immigrant serving organizations, and particularly grassroots organizations, those that are really kind of closest to the ground and closest to their communities. To create space for engagement and collaboration through a peer learning network of community-based organizations that serve immigrants and refugees, and kind of in an overarching way, centering the grantee and community voices throughout a participatory grant making process. So just to talk about some of the players here, I just really want to thank our funders. So the Scattergood Foundation, in addition to playing a facilitation role, is also a funder of the Community Fund, as is the City of Philadelphia Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services. This is really an incredible partnership, public-private partnership, with DBH IDS playing an incredible role here in supporting and investing in communities to really kind of do some of this preventative work around emotional health and wellness. The Dowdy Foundation is an incredible supporter as well, and the Patricia Kine Family Foundation, as well as the Paul D. Shergott Foundation. And this year, I'm really excited to announce that we have over $500,000 in the fund, so we'll be able to give, some incredible grants, and we're really thrilled to be able to kind of, build the fund larger than it has ever been in the past. So our community advisory board consists of organizations that have really they're all serving immigrant and refugee communities and are doing so in different communities throughout Philadelphia in the counties, and also really kind of touch many different areas of wellness, and really trying to sort of build out a community advisory board that is looking at humans holistically and thinking about the many different needs that people have, and sort of coming from different perspectives that way. This has been an incredibly thoughtful and incredible group, and we truly could not do this work without them. And I know some folks are on this call, so thank you all to, thanks so much to you to, creating this strategy and doing this work alongside us. So the Community Advisory Board, worked together to develop a definition of behavioral health that is really sort of, how do we think about behavioral health as something to be working towards. So the community fund, the goal is not necessarily to be treating behavioral health conditions sort of on the flip side or end side of, once there is really an issue, but really how do we prevent issues from coming up to begin with. So this definition is pulled from a number of definitions, but it's that a behavioral health is a dynamic state of well-being, which enables individuals to use their abilities in harmony with societal values. That important components of mental health include an individual's ability to recognize, express, and manage emotions, cope with the normal stresses of life, relate to others and function in social roles, maintain a healthy relationship with addictive substances, make a contribution to the community, and realize their own potential. So from that, the goal really is to invest in programs that will promote healing and resilience, that will cultivate connections and build social networks, that will foster dignity and self-agency, that will center cultural approaches to mental health, and make sure that we are approaching programming from a culturally appropriate and linguistically appropriate lens, and that ultimately will build capacity and collaboration among organizations. So for those of you who are familiar with the fund, we've kind of iterated in every cycle. So in this third cycle of grant making, we're pulling from some lessons learned from both the first cycle of grant making and the second cycle of grant making, and are going to be giving grant dollars out in sort of two different buckets. So the first is some flexible spending grants that will be for up to $10,000 each, all again with the goal of supporting emotional health and well-being for immigrants and refugees. We are encouraging organizations that have annual budgets of $500,000 or less to apply to this bucket. That being said, you're not sort of stuck in that bucket. You are welcome to apply for the larger grants. The flexible spending grants have a lower barrier application, and just are, as they are titled, more flexible in terms of how the dollars can be spent. The programmatic grants are for up to $50,000 each, and have, there's more in the application, and will sort of have some stricter selection criteria as well. Grantees or applicants are only allowed to apply for one of two buckets. So I would just recommend really going through the two buckets and seeing which makes most sense for your organization. So across the two buckets, the eligibility criteria for receiving grant dollars are the same. So the first is that you must be a nonprofit organization, either having 501c3 status or fiscal sponsorship. The geographic location, as some of you folks know, this has changed in cycles, but we have opened it back from sort of just Philadelphia County to including the greater Philadelphia region. So organizations that are located in Bucks County, Chester County, Delaware County, Montgomery County, and Philadelphia County are eligible to apply. This is a new eligibility requirement that we have a budget cap this year. So organizations that have an annual budget of $10 million or less, I mean, that is still quite a large organization, but really, trying to keep it at organizations that are sort of on the smaller and mid-size kind of range. We also are, and these last two eligibility requirements are sort of less like there is a yes or no answer, but that the organization's mission is really, and sort of key population that you work with is working with immigrant and refugee communities. This is really sort of to be supporting organizations that have the deep knowledge of immigrant and refugee communities, the communities that they're working with, and that building their capacity to provide emotional health and well-being programming. And then finally, this piece about representative leadership. And this is really about, wanting to advance the leadership of immigrants and refugees, and that for this criteria, there will be sort of in the evaluation process consideration about how your organization has worked to build a leadership team and a board that reflects the community that you serve. So, this is sort of not as hard and fast of like a strict eligibility criteria, but just kind of speaking to that in your application. There's a specific question about both your organization's mission and representative leadership. So just speaking to these elements and ensuring that organizations that are, their core mission is to work with immigrants and refugees, and they are at the very least really working toward having their leadership and board be representative of those communities. So just to give you all like a quick sense of what's in these applications, for the flexible spending grants, we are asking some questions around, in addition to those eligibility requirement questions, a community description, just talking about the community that you serve, both their needs as well as the strengths and assets that they bring. And then how your organization has really worked to build trust with your community and power within your community. In the second section, you'll be asked some information about the specific kind of program, and this might be more of a general operating grant as well. So that is fine for the flexible spending grants. So yes, of course, the amount that you'll be requesting, and again, you can request up to $10,000. A program description, and then just speaking to how the program aligns with the mission of the Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness. And then in the third section, you will speak a little bit to this community of practice and sort of how you believe your organization will be able to benefit from and contribute to this community of practice. And we are also asking, and your applications won't be judged on this answer, but because we really want to provide some capacity building opportunities for organizations, getting an understanding of where you feel like your organization could use some support in terms of capacity building. And that way that can help us to really plan for the grant year and how to, best provide those opportunities. And then finally, we'll be asking, just if there's anything else to support the application, and you're welcome to do that in writing. You're also welcome to share a video or some audio clips, a link to some photos, really kind of however you feel like you best communicate, any additional information to support your application. And we just want to say we recognize that, the written word is not always the best way to get it across, to get your points across. And so if you really would like to speak to your program and create a video, truly, if it is you kind of recording on Zoom, just talking about your program, sometimes that brings the program to life in a really special way. And we really wanted to give organizations that opportunity to, have a different mode of communication and to bring their programs to life. So for the programmatic grants, as you can see, it's many of the same things. So for community, we still ask for a community description about community trust and power. We are also, I'm going to just go through some of the additional items here. So in addition to a program description, we also want to get a sense of who the staff will be who will carry out the program, and also getting a sense of where that staff may be drawing any clinical expertise from. They themselves don't need to be clinicians, but where do they go for questions? Who do they rely on for some of that deeper behavioral health expertise in case something really comes up in the communities that you're working with, where someone needs more support than what the program maybe offers. We will ask, there is a little bit longer of a question about the alignment with the Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness mission, and sort of speaking individually to each of those elements of like promoting healing and resilience, cultivating social connections, etc. But that is a similar question from the flexible spending grants. We also want to get a sense of how the program that you're applying for fits into the organization's broader sense of holistic health and wellness. And then for this as well, we are asking for an implementation plan, including a budget and a budget narrative, and some outcomes of interest. Sort of what is your organization interested in understanding that happened as a result of the program? And then any partnering organizations that you're working with, and recognizing that this work is often complicated and we're all working together. So who are some other organizations that are contributing to that work? But they're, unlike in the second cycle of grants, we are not requiring partnership between two organizations. And then again, similar questions about the community of practice and additional information. So for the timeline, we launched the RFPs on Monday and are holding this informational session today. So really we can get this ball rolling here. The application period is open through mid-January, which is a lengthy amount of time. So you all have a good amount of time for to complete these applications. Part of the reason is that I'm actually going out on maternity leave in a couple weeks here. So we are keeping this open sort of through my maternity leave, and so our foundation president, Joe Pyle, will be available for questions about sort of eligibility and application content. And then we do have someone who will be working with us on our online grant portal who can answer questions, and I'll give you all of that contact information. But if you have questions, if your kind of wheels are turning about a program that you'd like to apply for, I would recommend maybe reaching out to me in the next few days here, and we can have a conversation before I go out on leave. So then in January, the decision-making group will start their review process and be making grant decisions in February. And we will notify grantees in March and get checks sent out as well. For folks who apply who don't receive grant dollars, we will really do our best to provide some feedback as well, so that you have a sense of sort of where the decision-making group, how they made that decision, and how potentially in the future you could bolster your application. And then the grant programs will run from April 2022 through March of 2023. And along that will be the community of practice. So I have talked a little bit about this decision-making group and the selection process. We have a great group who has some really incredible expertise, and we're thrilled to have this group of folks that will be evaluating applications and making those grant decisions. And these are the selection criteria, which really align with the applications themselves. So, making sure that the organizations are eligible. And then for the flexible spending grants, really trying to think about how the organization has described their ability to build trust and power, how well the program aligns with the mission of the community fund, how feasible the program is, especially within that sort of $10,000, the potential for impact. And I just want to note here, impact, I think often is thought of as sort of how many people you serve, which of course is fantastic, but also while we want to go broad, of course, we also want to go deep. So if there is, if the potential for impact is really deep among a smaller group of people, please know that we recognize that, and that, especially with a $10,000 grant, we know like that those dollars aren't going to be going to support 10,000 people. And so, really thinking thoughtfully about what you can do within that grant amount, and what impact really means to you, to your organization, and to your community. We will also be looking at sort of how you will both be able to contribute to and benefit from the community of practice, and then thinking too about how that program can contribute to sort of learnings more broadly about what it means to be providing emotional health and well-being services in immigrant and refugee communities. So for programmatic grants, mostly the same, but some of these starred items here, thinking about staffing, or the staff members responsible that have been identified as appropriate folks. If this is a new program, you may be adding staff members. We totally understand that, and sort of how you're thinking about that process. And then thinking too about sort of the implementation plan and budget, and how well does that set the organization up for success in implementing the program. And then additionally, sort of how the program fits into the organization's broader sense of holistic health and well-being. So I'm going to stop talking because I've been talking forever. And I just want to open it up. I will take you all through sort of like the website and found like our online grant portal, but I wanted to just stop here and see if there are any questions or thoughts.
Hi, Kathleen. This is Portia Kamara.
Hi.
And hi, everyone. I just want to say a big thumbs up. Thank you to the Scattergood Foundation for opening this up and not limiting it to Philadelphia County. And it says to us that the foundation really recognizes the work that is being done in the surrounding counties as well, and its contribution to the whole. So I just want to acknowledge that and say thank you very much.
Well, Portia, thank you so much for saying that. But also, I just want to say the Community Advisory Board were really the drivers of that. So you have some amazing peers that really recognize the incredible work that is being done in the counties, and have really sort of pushed to make sure that the counties are included in this process. Are there any other thoughts or questions before I kind of take us through the website? Sharon?
Oh, yeah.
Sharon, go ahead, and then Portia will come back to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sharon Hart, president of the Korean American Association of Greater Philadelphia. So glad to see Caitlin, and first of all, congratulations.
Yes.
That's a really nice surprise. We're happy to see that. We'll miss you though. And thrilled to come back as a formal recipient and working with this group. And it was an excellent experience just to help us to grow so much, getting into with the other organizations, working together. And also I see Emmanuel, and good to see you here. And I'm so glad to be back. And then we really appreciate this wonderful opportunity to help the immigration population grow. And we are looking for, positive impact. And then again, happy, and then thank you and all your hard work and all these partnerships. That's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So nice to see you. Portia, just wanted to come back to you.
Yes, would the foundation be open to working with smaller organizations who may not, who do not have the 501(c) status, but maybe working under the umbrella of a fiscal sponsorship?
Absolutely. 100% organizations that are working under fiscal sponsorship are eligible to apply, and that is true for both the flexible spending grants and the programmatic grants. We really encourage all grassroots organizations to apply and really become a part of this network. And new organizations that we might not know yet, we want to welcome them into the fold and get to know new folks. And 100% yes.
Thank you very much. And just an observation, it's probably there, but my brain processing didn't pick it up. I really appreciate the timeline that has been developed and just showing the graph. For the grant end date, I didn't see that on the timeline, or maybe I missed it somewhere. So
yeah, so it will end in March of 2023.
I'm sorry, not the grant ended, the application.
Oh, yes.
End date. Yeah.
Yes, it's January 14th.
14, right. So,
2022.
and it shows in the emailing that went out, but I don't see it reflected on that timeline that was created. So I'm wondering if, for people who's not here today.
Yeah, I'll take you through the website here
Okay.
on this session, and it will be up there. It's also on the application itself. So yes, but thank you. Okay, another question about eligibility. So I think we're good there.
Caitlin, can I just ask a question too?
Absolutely.
And echo Sharon's congratulations on the baby. So I hope you have a safe delivery in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
And thank you, yes, for this work. This is a fantastic opportunity. I just wanted to ask if there was any kind of preference or distinction among applications that might, for example, would an application that would use funding to support increasing hours for a behavioral health consultant to see clients, would that be acceptable and considered, well, potentially, or is the goal to primarily look for a broader sense of emotional health and well-being that isn't necessarily focused on a traditional, patient-client service delivery model?
Yeah, I think that, the goals of the fund have really been sort of more on that, like prevention and sort of thinking about building emotional health and wellness. That, of course, there are needs for, clinical treatment for people. So I think giving people a sense of, or giving the decision-making group a sense of sort of how that fits into the broader sense of emotional health and well-being of your organization, and really fitting that within a sort of broader lens would be really helpful to the application, if that's sort of how you're thinking about an application.
Thank you.
These are great questions. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen again, but if there's stuff that comes up, please feel free to throw questions in the chat. So just want to make sure everybody sees the screen. Yes, okay. So just to get to the application, just want to make sure everybody has all this information. So you're at scattergoodfoundation.org. Under support, you'll see the Community Fund for Wellness listed here. So you can click on the community fund, and then there's some information here about sort of the overall approach, how we define behavioral health. And if you scroll down, we have sort of all of this information. And Portia, to answer your question on this timeline here, there is the sort of when the application period closes on January 14th. And we will be sending, if you start an application, we'll be sending reminders like, hey, please remember to complete your application by this deadline. And just note also that it is January 14th at 5 p.m. And to get your application in at that point. We will also post this webinar up on this page. Another thing to just note is that we have this user guide and FAQs that should be really helpful, hopefully, to you all and others, so that, if you have any questions, feel free to go here first. If you can't get your questions answered, you can reach out to Joe or Oleander Furman, who will be sort of the point person on how to use the online grant portal. And, so if there are questions about like your password or creating an account on Foundant, feel free to reach out to her. And then, we have some of who are the players here. Another thing I just want to note is that all of our past grants are listed on this page, just to give you all a sense of the kinds of programs that the Community Fund has invested in the past. So you can see all these grants from both cycles, and, really some incredible work that has come through from the Community Fund. Also, the important part, the link to the actual application is on this page. You just hit apply now, and this will take you to our online grant portal. So I just want to make sure we do have a few grant applications open at this time. So please make sure to apply to either Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness programmatic grants or Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness flexible spending grants. They are at the top. So, hopefully they'll be the first ones you click on, but we have a couple of other grant opportunities down below that, I wouldn't want folks to be intending to apply to the Community Fund and accidentally apply to another grant process. You can preview each of the applications directly from this page without actually creating an account, which is a really nice thing to be able to do. And then to log on or to create an account, you just click that button up at the top, and that will enable you to be able to, fully apply. So with that, I'm just going to see if there are any questions sort of about that, just that process. Sharon?
Yes, I have to polish my memory from the 2017. Is this somewhat similar to the previous requirement? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is Portia. I want to go back to my first question and join with the others in a resounding way to say congratulations. I'm knocking myself. You were the first and didn't say it, but I was, doing a hooray internally. Congratulations again. And a follow-up to the presentation. Can you, as much as can be allowed, provide some information around the financial requirements for organizations that will be submitting, any fiscal requirements that would be helpful to know, or if not, if we are directed to the website, that would be okay too. But I don't know how much can be shared now.
Hold on, can you all, okay, looked like I was frozen. Am I good? Okay, so really the requirements are for organizations must be have a budget of $10 million or less. And, we just ask in the application sort of what is your annual budget size. And then for programmatic grants, we ask for a full budget and budget narrative, but that is sort of within your own template. We don't have a specific template that we're asking for. And that is really that. We're not trying to have a super high barrier application.
Thank you. I asked that because there are some funders that were required maybe 2 or 3 year audit reports or those kinds of things. And wondering if that would be. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we are. Yeah, trying to make it a little simpler on you guys.
Thank you.
So I'm going to just put in the chat here the contact information, one for Oleander Furman, who will be providing some support around the grant portal. So again, if you have trouble logging in or lost your password, or I know sometimes with Foundant, somebody else from your organization may have created an account, and it can be challenging to then create another account under that same organization name. So if you're having any issues with Foundant, please reach out to Oleander at info@scattergoodfoundation.org. And then certainly after October 21st, but up until then, you can reach out to me. But after I go out on leave, reach out to Joe Pyle for questions about sort of eligibility, application content. If you want to talk through sort of what your application looks like, you're welcome to reach out to him at jpyle@scattergoodfoundation.org. So any final lingering questions? These questions have been really good. Jung?
Hi, Caitlin. This is Jung from Philip Jason Memorial Foundation. For the programmatic grants, is it okay to apply for a project where we're receiving funding from another foundation?
Absolutely. Of course, yes. And if for anybody if you're receiving funding from the Scattergood Foundation or any of the funders of the pooled fund, you are also eligible to apply. So this is, if you've been a grantee of the community fund in the past, you're more than welcome to apply. Yes, you are welcome to apply.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, I can stay on for another few minutes, and folks, please feel free to, if you have a question, you can please feel free to stay on and ask. But with that, I will just say a great deal of thank you to all of you and everything I know you all are doing in your communities, and for joining us here today to learn about this opportunity. And we really hope that you'll apply and be able to access resources to support emotional health and wellness in the communities that you're working with. So thank you all so much. I hope everybody has a lovely weekend.